Julian finally decided to end our 10-year-long love marathon and move into the final stage. On the day he was preparing for our big wedding, I got a message and some photos from a girl I didn't know. In the pictures, Julian and she were standing together, smiling so sweetly. Is it really worth forcing him to marry you? He stopped loving you ages ago. I didn't hold back. I handed my phone to Julian and demanded an explanation. He spent the whole night smoking in the living room. An early morning he walked into the bedroom and said to me, "She's my student." But yeah, I did have feelings for her. That's all. We've been together for 10 years. And now, just because of some photos, they want me to give up on this relationship. I'm not willing to. I put on my wedding dress and decided to go ahead with the wedding. Assistant Pat suddenly rushed out midway and said to Julian, "Julian, teacher, Maria knows you're getting married. And there's been an incident." The diamond ring hung in midair before suddenly dropping to the floor. Julian rushed out the door like lightning, with red eyes. I shouted after him, "If you walk out that door today, it's over between us for good." He paused for a moment, then left the wedding venue without any hesitation. Chapter 1. Looking through the countless photos on my phone, my heart suddenly twisted in pain. There wasn't a single photo where we looked close, just snapshots of the girl with her eyes shining bright, focused on her research, moments when she pouted, pretending to be upset while eating, times she laughed wildly after getting a bonus. Most were just random snaps, only a handful where she was playfully posing for the camera. If it were me before, I'd have stormed right up to Julian, smashed the phone hard into his face, and walked away, breaking up with him like it was nothing. But now, just tomorrow, we're about to complete this 10-year love story. We're finally making it official. Getting married. We've told all our friends and family, booked the wedding banquet, and sent out the invitations. Happiness feels so close, right within reach. Yet, at this crucial moment, I discover something like this. I didn't want to face it. Holding back my tears, I took a deep breath. I decided to come clean and asked Julian for an explanation. Julian is an exceptional man. So young, yet already the youngest core researcher at a top domestic research institute. He's also a renowned doctoral advisor at University C. After 10 years of sticking together through thick and thin, I know him well. I put the photos in front of him, my eyes so red they looked almost scary. In Julian's eyes, a flicker of panic showed. Then he quickly masked it with a calm that felt like nothing was wrong. I guess he never really tried to hide it from me. During those long, dark 8 hours, he smoked 2 whole packs in the living room, while I spent the night staring at the stars in the bedroom. The next morning, just before the makeup artist knocked on the door, he came into the bedroom and came clean with me. "That girl is my student. Her name is Maria. I admit, I have feelings for her." My heart, hanging in midair, suddenly sank. Again, I heard Julian say, "But Serafina, you and I have come this far, not easily. I'll make her leave my research group. I promise this kind of thing won't happen again." Julian gave me a sincere promise. In these 10 years, he's never gone back on his word. I couldn't bear to lose these 10 years of feelings, nor let go of this love that's as deeply connected as bone and sinew. So, I chose to forgive, until, at the wedding, the officiant solemnly asked, "Do you, Mr. Julian, take Ms. Serafina to be your lifelong partner, to honor, love, and care for her forever?" My heart was pounding nervously. Thump thump, waiting for him to give this relationship a perfect ending. But under the assistant's words, he threw the diamond ring onto the cold floor. Everyone there watched him rush out of the wedding venue, leaving me behind. Chapter 2. Julian broke his promise. The wedding venue was in complete chaos. Both sets of parents had no clue what was really going on. Assistant Pat's eyes flickered as he anxiously explained. "One of the teacher's students ran into trouble. She has some important research materials, and the teacher just went to check on her. I'm sure she'll be back soon." Pat has been with Julian for 8 years. All these years, he's always treated me with respect, greeting me with a smile and calling me the professor's wife. But now, he doesn't even have the courage to look me in the eyes. I don't know how much he's been hiding from me on Julian's behalf. Julian has been involved with that girl named Maria again. A heavy wave of pain spread across my chest. Tears fell uncontrollably, one by one hitting the floor. I truly felt Julian's betrayal. My parents held my hands, helpless and anxious. This is ridiculous. What could possibly be more important than our marriage? How could he just leave Serafina behind and take off without a second thought? Julian's always been so reliable. How could he mess up at such a critical moment? Right before the wedding? Uncle and Aunt felt really guilty and quickly stood up from their seats. His dad called him on the phone, and his mom held my hand, patiently trying to comfort me. Serafina, don't worry, Julian's just a workaholic. There might actually be something important with that female colleague. Just wait until that stubborn guy gets back, Auntie will definitely make him apologize to you. I gripped the diamond ring tightly, piercing the skin of my palm, leaving behind blood-stained marks. There were still quite a few of Julian's colleagues at the wedding venue. They all looked at me, completely confused. I looked down, laughing through my tears. Julian promised me he would cut off all contact with that girl, but now that girl's in trouble. He threw everything aside and went after her, no matter what. For a full 3 hours, Julian didn't answer any of our calls. He instinctively rushed to save that girl. He never considered how helpless and shattered I'd feel, a bride left alone at the wedding venue. The scene was noisy and chaotic, with lights flashing blindingly. I stood alone at the wedding venue, enduring the strange looks and whispered judgments from both sides' guests. Suddenly, overwhelmed with anger, my vision went completely dark. Serafina. The moment Mom rushed toward me, I collapsed straight to the ground. When I woke up, I was in the hospital. The doctor gently told me, "There are 2 of you now, so don't get upset easily. Take care of yourself." I touched my belly, a sinking feeling weighing on my heart. My uncle and aunt standing beside me, along with my parents, were all strangely excited. "Child, aw, there's a baby in your belly. Good daughter-in-law. Julian's really lucky to marry you." I looked at them and forced a bitter, awkward smile. Julian's mom happily held my mom's hand, her face glowing with excitement. "This is truly wonderful. We're going to have grandchildren." What a false alarm, double happiness. Tears welled up in my eyes. Happy? Honestly, I feel like this child came at the worst possible time. God always shows up right when I'm about to give up on Julian. You gave me hope again. I took a deep breath, my whole body trembling uncontrollably. Mom saw something was off and looked at me with worry in her eyes. "Child, is your stomach hurting? The doctor said you were really upset. Are you feeling okay?" I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. They spilled over. All these years, my parents have been most worried about my marriage. Mom always hoped I'd get married sooner, but because of Julian's work, I kept putting it off, always thinking of him. Now they're finally getting what they wanted, witnessing my marriage with their own eyes. Julian and I ran into problems in our relationship. Chapter 3. There was a noise at the door. Julian rapidly appeared. My uncle and aunt immediately breathed a sigh of relief when they saw him, then scolded. "What's wrong with you? Running away from the wedding? Look how you've upset Serafina." Actually, my uncle and aunt are quite open-minded and have treated me well over the years. They always worried that Julian was holding me back and pressured him to marry me and take responsibility. But Julian's stubborn and refused to listen to them. Feeling guilty toward me, my uncle and aunt kept finding ways to give me gold bracelets and the latest designer bags. From when the wedding incident happened until now, they've stayed by my side. "Julian, this is messed up, but I still have to save face with uncle and aunt." I wiped away my tears and gave them a faint smile. "I'm fine. You guys go ahead. Let me talk to Julian for a moment." Uncle and aunt nodded. My parents didn't show Julian any warmth. Before leaving the hospital room, they carefully told him to apologize to me properly. Julian looked a little pale, and his gaze at me was full of guilt. The hospital room was so quiet. Neither of us spoke first. After a long time, Julian held my cold hand, staying silent for a while, his voice a little hoarse. "Serafina, in all these 10 years, I've never asked you for anything. Our relationship's always been good. But this time, please don't tell anyone about this. It'll only hurt Maria, okay?" He left me, ran off from the wedding to find the girl who tried to kill herself for him. Now, even when he sees me lying in the hospital bed, his heart still leans toward her. My heart twisted sharply with pain, making it hard to breathe. I used to think that no one could promise to love just one person in a lifetime. Julian was just temporarily lost. I could forgive him for that. Julian said that with such sincere eyes. His attitude made it impossible for me to keep pretending I didn't hear, to treat that girl's issue like nothing. I looked down and laughed through my tears. Julian, you shouldn't be begging me, you should be apologizing. Julian's eyes went blank. The forced smile on my lips suddenly faded. The cold wind howled outside the window, chilling me to the bone. I was full of anger and hurt, but my voice remained fairly calm. Today, you left the wedding venue without caring about anything. Did you ever think about how I'd feel? There were hundreds of guests sitting downstairs, and you just walked out like that. What do you take me? Take us, our whole family, for? Julian, this is me, this is the wedding our entire family has been waiting for 10 long years. Your first reaction doesn't lie. He never thought about how humiliating it was for me to stay alone at the wedding venue. He didn't even worry about why I ended up in the hospital. The first thing he said was Maria. Tears could no longer be held back, streaming down from the corners of my mouth, falling thick and fast onto the blue bedsheets. I felt dizzy and left a puddle of water. I struggled to force a word out of my throat. Get lost. Chapter 4. Julian softened his tone when he saw I was upset. Serafina, running away from the wedding was my fault, but it was a matter of life and death. I'm sorry. I know you're probably feeling terrible right now, and Aunt and Uncle might have their doubts too. But Serafina, I can't just ignore a life hanging in the balance. He's a very compassionate person. We originally met at a pet hospital off campus. Julian brought a limping kitten from the roadside to be treated. I brought my dog in for shots. The vet said, "You two really have a connection. This girl, just like you, often brings stray cats she's rescued to me." Our bond started with one act of kindness from Julian. Everything from the past made it hard for me to be heartless. I looked into his eyes. So what now? Are you going to never marry me because of her? Or are you going to leave me because of her? Julian was silent for a long time, a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. Just as I was about to lose hope, he took my hand, his voice steady and firm. Serafina, I told you, I'm not going to leave you. We've been together for 10 years, no one knows me better or fits me more than you. Maria's situation, she's really unstable emotionally right now. I think, maybe after some time, like 6 months, just 6 months, we can get married, okay? Julian made that promise to me once again. Before, he made me wait a whole 10 years for his career. Now, because of another girl, he wants me to wait another 6 months. If it were for other reasons, honestly, I could still keep waiting for him. After all, it's been so many years already. Youth fades, and my looks have aged. I can't wait. But who told me I love him? But honestly, he didn't have to do this, it's just that his heart changed. I can handle it. My chest felt clogged with stifled anger, burning deep inside me. There's a little life inside me, waiting for me to nurture it. I thought for a long, long time, my mind full of that girl's smile, and Julian's fond, tender smile as he looked at his phone. The tightness in my chest slowly began to fade. Suddenly, I just didn't want to wait anymore. I pulled my hand out of his palm and whispered softly, Julian, I'm not a smart girl. I've been in love with you since I was 18, for a whole 10 years. I remember how nervous you were when you first confessed to me, trembling all over. The way you acted that day made me both laugh and feel my heart flutter. I remember when I agreed to be your girlfriend. You held me and cried with excitement. That was the first time I truly felt love beyond just family. Over these years, you've bought me everything I liked, kept every promise you made, and lived up to all the vows you swore to me. For these 10 years, I've always believed that your love for me ran deep to your very bones. I looked up, and suddenly tears flooded out. But today, I feel like you don't love me anymore. Just those 2 words, not love. They completely broke me. We'd been together for 10 years, with so many beautiful memories between us. Julian probably felt it too. His eyes reddened, and a tear slipped down from the corner. But in a flash, it was gone. He wiped his tears and said to me, But Serafina, if I marry you now, She definitely won't be able to handle it. I'm afraid she might do something stupid again. Please wait a little longer. I promise I'll give you a home, okay? Chapter 5. No sooner had Julian finished speaking than my parents walked in. He held my hand, looking at me anxiously. It felt like he was waiting for an answer, but also afraid I'd say something that might hurt that girl. 10 years of standing by each other, and I'm even carrying a child. My heart was completely shattered. Let me think about it. All right. Then rest up. I'll come pick you up from the hospital tomorrow. After Julian left, my parents asked me with concern, "Sweetheart, have you been wronged? If you have, then we don't have to go through with the marriage. Your parents can take care of you." I didn't want my parents to worry, and I hadn't figured out how to deal with this, so I just shook my head and smiled. It's not that I feel wronged. It's just, I'm too tired. The next day, I packed my things and waited for Julian in the hospital room, but he still didn't show up. Just before noon, he finally sent me a message. "Did your parents come to pick you up? I still have work at the laboratory. See you at home tonight." I didn't think much of it and left the room with my parents. But in the hallway, I ran into Julian and that girl. He didn't notice me at all. His eyes and heart were completely on Maria, who he was holding close. She's tall and slim, with a pure look, and big, round eyes. This was the first time I met her. So, she was Maria, that girl who slit her wrist to try to kill herself for Julian, making the usually calm and composed Julian lose control at the wedding. Maybe I stared a little too long. Because she noticed me, her face went pale. She dropped the medicine box she was holding, and nervously grabbed Julian's arm. She looked like an innocent little rabbit caught doing something wrong. Julian looked over and saw me. A flash of panic crossed his eyes as he walked toward me and my parents. Before my parents could even ask, Julian explained, "Uncle, Aunt, this is my colleague. She's a relative of Pat's. Pat was busy today, so she asked me to bring her to the hospital for a checkup." My parents looked at Maria suspiciously, noticing her guilty expression. "Really? Then why didn't you come to pick up Serafina?" Julian looked uncomfortable and shot me a pleading look. I smiled faintly, not planning to help him hide the truth. "Isn't she the girl you ditched me for at the wedding venue to go save? How did she suddenly become part of Pat's family?" Julian's smile froze at the corner of his mouth as he spoke, clearly annoyed. "Serafina, cut it out. Mom and Dad are still here, and this is a hospital. Don't give others something to laugh at. Yesterday at the wedding venue, you left me, your bride, to go after her, and today, here at the hospital, you left me, a pregnant woman, to be with her during her checkup. Yeah, it really does sound like a joke." I stepped forward and handed the discharge papers to the nurse. I didn't even acknowledge Julian. The hallway was busy with people coming and going. Julian's face darkened, the awkwardness on his face growing heavier by the second. "Serafina, stop it!" My parents frowned, like they were starting to realize something, and the anger on their faces only deepened. Mom pointed at Maria and Julian, furious, and finally spoke up. "Julian, how dare you snap at Serafina? You said you were working late and couldn't pick her up. But now you're here, so this is your idea of working late?" Mom's accusation left Julian utterly speechless, with no way to defend himself. "No, Auntie." Maria hurried over. Her eyes were a little red as she stood in front of Julian, bowing repeatedly to me and my parents in front of everyone. "I'm sorry, Professor's wife. I'm the one who caused trouble for you and the teacher. Professor's wife. I really am Pat's senior brother's family. I'm his cousin. The teacher brought me to the hospital because he was worried I might have some complications." That explanation sounds nice, but it just makes our family look unreasonable. I lost my patience and stared at Julian, whose face darkened. "Don't act like I made you lose face. You're the one who did something to betray me." My parents and I stepped out of the hospital. On the way home, Mom held my hand, quietly furious. I knew she had a lot she wanted to ask, but I didn't know how to explain. Should I say Julian cheated? He didn't. Should I say Julian's heart changed? How do I even say that? Chapter 6. My phone lit up. Julian sent me a text. "Serafina, don't be mad. I'm sorry about earlier. I got you a gift." Remember to sign for it. When my parents and I got home, we saw a delicate little cake sitting on the floor. I'm hot-headed and love romance. Julian made me mad. He always likes giving me those Disney castle-shaped cakes. I've been eating them for 10 years. Honestly, I'm totally over it. But Julian is so busy. I feel for him. I can't stand seeing him stay up all night doing research while still trying to cheer me up. So every time I get that cake, I fake being excited. I just want him to be happy too. Now, I finally don't have to pretend anymore. I gave the cake to the neighbor's kid and shot a reply back to Julian. It's been 10 years with someone like you. Even the best cake gets boring. Julian probably caught my little hint and apologized. I didn't think it through. Tomorrow, I'll personally go to the mall and pick out a gift for you. The next night, Julian rang my doorbell. His eyes were sparkling like stars, a big smile on his face. He held out a box, showing it to me. Serafina, this is the necklace I picked out for you. Pretty, right? The box shimmered right in front of me. Let's be honest. The necklace is really beautiful, just like the one I saw on Maria's neck in Julian's phone. Equally stunning. I smiled softly at him. So, this is the gift you carefully picked out after spending the whole day at the amusement park with her? A flicker of surprise flashed in Julian's eyes. He explained, No, Serafina, don't get me wrong. It's not that I can't pick gifts. I just asked her to help me choose. And to make sure you wouldn't misunderstand, I even asked a bunch of people to come along. Look, this is a photo of us having hot pot together. After saying that, Julian opened his phone and showed me a group photo of him with some people. Honestly, if I hadn't seen Maria's status update earlier, I might have actually believed it was just a casual get-together. I didn't have the strength to say anything more. I just sank down against the door. What about the amusement park? Why did you hang out with her alone? I lifted my phone and showed Maria's status update to Julian. In the photo, she and Julian were smiling brightly, like they were a couple. The photos of them eating hot pot together looked just like a family. Julian's pupils widened, a bit shocked. How do you have Maria's contact info? We'd been together for 10 years, and I always trusted Julian. He's handsome and the youngest PhD advisor around. Over the years, countless female students have liked him, but I was never worried, because I always thought he was a responsible man, loyal in love. The first 9 years proved I wasn't wrong, but it also showed I overestimated Julian. She added me just last night. I wasn't planning to approve it, but Maria kept apologizing to me through the application list. So close. Just a little bit. Just that tiny bit. I just thought Julian liked her, but it was a one-sided crush. Maybe it was my ungrateful attitude that made Julian feel a little embarrassed. He frowned and impatiently put down the jewelry box he was holding. Serafina, I won't break my promise, and I have nothing to do with her. Going to the amusement park was just to say goodbye. So don't be so sensitive. I already gathered a group of people to have hot pot so you'd feel at ease. And you still don't trust me? Julian is mad at me. Back then, he wouldn't even dare raise his voice at me. I looked up and gave Julian a serious look. If you had any sense of decency, I wouldn't be in this mess. After all this time, Julian's become a stranger to me. Over the years, he's succeeded in his career, confident and full of spirit, shedding that awkward youth and growing much more mature. That Julian who would keep his distance from every other girl just for me. He's gone. Maybe I should let go of this obsession. Let go of these 10 years. Give us both a chance to be free. I took one last clear look at Julian and forced a sober smile. Julian, this is where it ends. Let's just break up. After I said this, there was none of the joy or relief on Julian's face that I expected. His expression stayed stormy with anger for a long time. Serafina, I only went to the amusement park with her once. I stayed calm too. Once there's a 1, there's going to be a 2, then a 3. Chapter 7. Julian was silent for a long time. So mad he was pounding the wall in front of me. In the end, he turned away, his face dark, and said nothing. Ending a 10-year relationship isn't easy. That night, I couldn't sleep. Since we decided to break up, I got up to pack my things that belonged to me in this home, while tossing my stuff into the storage box. I couldn't help but start remembering the year we graduated. Julian had just started at University C and was insanely busy. A year later, he came back holding a contract signed for a full 10 years and $5 million. And he placed it in my hand. Serafina, I'm giving you a home, I mean what I say. The young man I remember was sincere and brave. When he loved me, the fire burned hotter than the rising sun. That day, I cried until my eyes were swollen. Holding him close, I used the bank card to buy this house. We kissed under the fading sunset. Blushing, I went to IKEA to pick out furniture. We talked about everything like two little birds chirping away. The starlights on the balcony were hung up by us, and the rocking chair holds 10 years of endless chatter. We cuddled on the living room carpet, holding a watermelon, sipping soda, watching those overly cheesy Hong Kong and Taiwan idol dramas. He said he wanted to give me a home, but now, he's forcing me to break apart this relationship and move out of that home. It took me 3 days to clear out everything that belonged to me. When the movers arrived, I told both families about the breakup. Both sets of parents rushed over in a panic. My mom and dad respected my decision and didn't say a word. Only my aunt anxiously grabbed my hand and asked, "Oh dear, what happened? How did you suddenly break up?" Serafina, Auntie knows that the wedding mess was because Julian didn't handle things right. But didn't you all clear it up? How did it end with a breakup? My uncle pressed his lips together and anxiously asked me, "Yeah, you said you'd been together for 10 years. So how are you suddenly breaking up?" I didn't have the heart to tell them what Julian did. So even now, they still don't know why we broke up. Serafina, come on, you're about to get married. It's just a couple of lovers arguing. No way you're really breaking up. I didn't say a word and just let the movers carry out box after box of stuff. Just as my uncle and aunt were nearly worn out from nagging, Julian unexpectedly came back. But behind him was Maria, in a pure white dress. The room was completely silent. Everyone was staring at the two of them, each showing different expressions. Julian's mom's voice caught as she tried to reason with me. When she spoke again, her voice shook a little. "Julian, did you do something that betrayed Serafina?" Julian's dad's eyes widened in anger. "Son, who is this woman?" Julian didn't answer. He scanned the mostly empty room, then looked at me. "Where are you planning to move?" He remained calm and composed, quietly accepting my decision to leave. No explanation, no attempt to hold me back, and without any hesitation, he brought Maria back here. I spoke calmly. "I'm moving back to my real home." Chapter 8. Julian nodded. "All right, I'll come find you in a few days." After he finished speaking, he pulled Maria close and introduced her to everyone. "This is my research assistant. She had some health issues recently, so I brought her home today to check on her and have a meal together." Julian introduced her openly, without the slightest hint of guilt. Both families were a bit confused and puzzled. Julian's aunt spoke up, her voice a little anxious. Son, Serafina is about to break up with you, and you still have the nerve to bring students home for dinner?" Julian's mother's words made Julian frown. He took a couple of breaths, expressionless, and then spoke. "I ran away from the wedding and made Serafina unhappy. Maybe it's good she goes home for some peace for a couple of days." "Mom, don't get involved in this." Julian's mother wanted to say more. Maria suddenly stepped forward, warmly linked arms with her, and smiled sweetly. "Aunt, I'm a student of Julian's mother's teacher. The teacher really looks after me at the hospital and even said he'd treat me to a meal today to celebrate my discharge. But I wouldn't dare trouble the teacher to do it. Since uncle and aunt are here, why don't you try my cooking?" Julian's mother is very thoughtful. She looked at Julian's cold face, then glanced at my calm expression. It felt like she sensed something was wrong. She shrugged off Maria's hand and came over to me, looking worried. "Serafina, why don't we all sit down and talk this through?" The movers finished loading all the luggage. I was just about to refuse. Maria cut me off, a triumphant challenge flashing in her eyes. "Serafina sis, just say yes to Auntie. It's a good chance to sit down together and try my cooking. Don't you think? Last time we met, you called me professor's wife. Now you're already starting to change how you address me." I sneered coldly at her, about to refuse. The twist happened in an instant. Smack! Maria's face bore a fiery red handprint. I widened my eyes, staring at Mom, who had just slapped Maria. Mom, you. Mom's eyes were bloodshot, her voice trembling as she looked at me. You're my own flesh and blood. Do you really think I don't know anything? That day at the hospital, I saw Julian. He was holding that girl close, acting all affectionate, and her wrist was wrapped in bandages from a wrist cutting. Julian ran away from the wedding venue just for her, didn't he? And you broke up with Julian because of her, right? You've been with Julian since you were 18, and now you're 28, 10 whole years of your youth. You gave up being a precious daughter from a rich family to learn cooking, knitting, and swallow your pride for him. If things truly couldn't go on, would you break up? Would you even come back home? Mom's not asking you to find someone perfect. But today, Julian showed up with that girl and slapped your face with it. I just can't stand it. If my girl won't stand up for herself, then I'll do it for her. My mom's words landed with undeniable weight. Maria covered her face. Her voice instantly caught in a choked cry. Uncle and aunt stood there, shocked and frozen. Only Julian looked at Maria with a sorrowful expression. He shot me a displeased glance, his voice cold as ice. Serafina, you're old enough, and you're still tattling to the grown-ups. Before Julian could finish speaking, Julian's mother rushed out and slapped Julian. You brat. What are you saying? Don't you know Serafina is already pregnant? How can you do such awful things and face her now? When Julian heard I was pregnant, shock flashed deep in his eyes. He looked at me, his voice trembling slightly, with a faint trace of surprise. Serafina, you're pregnant? He walked toward me, looking overjoyed. Mom stepped in front of me, blocking him with a dark expression. My daughter has already broken up with you. The child in her belly has nothing to do with you. As soon as she said that, Julian looked visibly anxious. How is it nothing to do with me? I am the child's father. Mom pointed at him angrily, her voice trembling slightly. Who exactly do you think you are? The child's father? Do you even have a relationship with my daughter? Are you married? Have you had the wedding banquet? Now you want to come crawling back? No way. The arguing and voices trying to break it up grew louder, and it was clear things were about to spiral out of control. I darkened my face, took out a hospital report from the drawer under the coffee table, and placed it in front of Julian. You know what I regret most in my life? Chapter 9. Julian grabbed the medical report, flipping through it anxiously. He looked at the ultrasound report tucked inside, absolutely thrilled. He murmured to himself, I'm having a child. I'm having a child. Julian's mother saw him like that and quickly nudged him with her arm. Hurry up and apologize to Serafina. Julian came back to his senses and looked at me with joy. Serafina, you're pregnant, carrying my child. It's our child, the fruit of our love. I'm going to be a dad. The joy on his face was genuine, but because of the girl he brought back, I found myself planning to leave. Saying I wasn't hurt would be a lie. I looked at him, my throat feeling a little dry. Julian, you can't be a dad. I'm not going to keep this child. The moment I said that, Julian's pupils tightened. What? My uncle and aunt grew anxious too. No way. Serafina, this is your flesh and blood. How can you just decide to get rid of it? I touched my belly, feeling warm inside. Inside flows a little life I've been waiting for 10 years. I can't bear to let go either. But when I looked up, I saw Julian standing behind Maria. No one can stand watching their husband fall for someone else. I don't want to become that shrew I despise either. 10 years together, I've never wronged Julian. Now that I'm choosing to leave, my conscience is clear. If I feel any guilt, it's for the kindness of Julian's mother and uncle and aunt. I pointed at Maria and then at uncle and aunt. Uncles, aunts, my mom wasn't lying. This girl is the reason Julian ran off on his own wedding day. She tried to commit suicide for Julian. And Julian, he likes her too. My words hit like a ticking time bomb exploding on flat ground. Julian's mother stared wide-eyed, utterly stunned as she looked at Julian. What? Son, didn't you say you ran from the wedding because of some paperwork? Mom squeezed my hand, her face darkening even more. You bastard. You bastard. You've destroyed my daughter's entire life. Julian's face was bruised and purple, and he kept denying it. It's not what you think. Mom, Dad, Uncle, Aunt, please. Just listen to me. Listen to what? My daughter has already decided to break up with you, and you're still bringing this girl around to rub it in our faces. If this isn't cheating, then what is? My mom glared at Julian, fuming with anger. Julian glanced at Maria, whose face was ghostly pale, and pressed his lips tightly. Aunt, there's really nothing between us. She's just my student. Maria caught on right away and nodded firmly. Exactly. Julian's mother is my teacher, and there's nothing going on between us. We're just teacher and student. This hesitant attitude only made the tension in the room worse. Mom straightened up and stood in front of me. Julian, you've been with my daughter for 10 years. You should know how much she's been through. I'm not going to argue today. This is about my daughter's future happiness. I don't care how you resolve this, but as long as my daughter doesn't forgive you, don't even think about coming near her. Mom spoke firmly, pushing aside the uncle and aunt blocking us, then took me away from the scene. Chapter 10. On the way home, Mom held my hand tightly. She looked at me, sighed deeply a few times, then anxiously turned her gaze out the window. I knew she was worried about me. My parents have always had a strong relationship, which made me have really high hopes for love. I dreamed of having a happy marriage, marrying a wonderful man. Julian met every single one of those hopes, but he also shattered all of them with his own hands. Saying I wasn't hurt would be a lie. Still, no matter how deep the pain is, it eventually fades away over time. If today I just keep quiet and pretend I didn't hear anything, push down what happened between him and Maria, I can only imagine how much more heartache I'll face down the road. Leaving someone you've loved so deeply and for so long feels like jumping out of a plane that's about to crash. You lose all sense of gravity. You're terrified. But the moment you land safely, a brand new life is waiting for you. I held Mom's hand tight and gave a small smile. Mom, I'm okay. Let's go home. Mom's face was drenched in tears. Julian's home is in City A. My home is in City C. City A has a dry climate. City C is warm and humid. Over the years, I've stayed in City A with Julian, rarely going home. Today, I finally get to go back and see everyone. From City A to City C, it's an 8-hour drive on the highway. During these 8 hours, I thought a lot and talked a lot with Mom. In the end, I decided to terminate the pregnancy and go to the United Kingdom for further studies. After finishing my studies, I'll come back to City C to open a studio and live a good life from then on. Mom is very supportive of me. She patted my hand and looked up, sighing. Back then, I hoped you'd marry into a good family. Someone who would love you, just like your mom. Now, I just want you to be happy, whether you marry or have kids. Mom thinks it really doesn't matter anymore. Mom didn't blame me for ruining the relationship. She didn't scold me for wasting 10 years of my youth. Nor did she resent me for coming back to her place pregnant. No matter when or where, the only person who unconditionally supports me is Mom. I held her hand and cried out loud. Tired from crying, I fell into a deep sleep in the car. When I woke up, my phone was flooded with missed calls and messages from Julian. They basically said he would keep his distance from Maria. He promised he wouldn't cheat and that he'd love me forever. His tone was so sincere. Along with the messages, there was a plane ticket. Julian said he was waiting for me in City C. No matter how much I wanted to punish him, he harbored no resentment or regrets. His apology felt completely genuine. But me? I just didn't want to forgive him anymore. Chapter 11. The car pulled up to the familiar doorstep. Soft rain began falling from the sky. Julian was holding a bouquet of flowers and carrying a big cake. In the gloomy, rainy December weather, he stood awkwardly at the staircase wearing a thin shirt. My parents exchanged a glance, cursing under their breath. You caused all this trouble yourself, and now you actually have the nerve to ask for forgiveness. You've got a thick skin, wonder if it could be fried for lard. Julian listened to their words, angry but silent. His face kept turning pale and then flushed. I held up my umbrella and spoke softly. Mom, Dad, you go upstairs first. Mom and Dad shot Julian a glare, grumbled, and went upstairs. I looked up and saw Julian's eyes were red. His chest heaved repeatedly, his voice growing hoarse. Serafina, after 10 years together, I don't want it to end like this. 10 years of love. 10 years of youth. Now, here he is, standing at my doorstep, saying he can't accept how this turned out. The drizzle soaked through my sleeves. My voice was cold and soft. Is it my fault? 10 years of love, only for you to fall for someone else before the wedding. Julian, this is on you. It's also the consequence of my own weakness. It's not what you think between her and me. Julian growled at me, smashing the cake on the floor. Soft and soggy, it collapsed into a gooey mess. I stared at it and gave a slight smile. What a pity. Now it's inedible. And what a pity that we have no future together. Julian was breathing hard, speaking in confusion. Serafina, didn't we agree? I'll transfer her out of our group. Just pretend this never happened. Didn't we agree? I will move her away, and I won't betray you. So why are you still leaving me? The cold drizzle fell, and Julian looked a bit tense. I took a step back, and the rain soaked through my pointed shoes. These shoes were a birthday gift from Julian. They're lambskin, supposed to be water-resistant. Such a shame. Even these are getting ruined, because I overestimated my own patience. Julian, I just can't accept that the man I love has feelings for someone else. Even though I've given you 10 years of my youth. Even if I have to pay the silent price for those 10 years. Julian shot me an irritated look, then took a deep breath and spoke calmly. Serafina, no one loves just one person forever. I only had a brief crush on her, but the one I love is you. You should understand me. Serafina, yeah, I understand. Julian, rational and calm. Julian never lets his life get off track. He planned to get into a PhD program within 2 years, so he could stick to going to bed early and waking up early for 2 whole years. He aimed to become a mentor at University C in 3 years, meaning days and nights spent in the lab and library. But when it came to marriage, he kept hesitating and had no plans at all. Everything, absolutely everything, was going according to Julian's plan. I cooperated with him unconditionally. But in his plan, my wishes never mattered. Julian, your life, every single thing, was steadily moving according to your plan. And my life? It kept changing just to fit into your plan. After graduation, you said you wanted to apply to University C, so I gave up my offer in City C to be with you. You said you wanted to do research, so I worked to support you. I went all out to give you what you wanted. But what about you? I pushed Julian for marriage for 10 whole years. If it weren't for my uncle and aunt begging him on their knees recently to marry me, that wedding simply won't happen. Julian, you're so smart. We got this far. You should have seen this coming. If you're already into Maria, then you shouldn't be coming back to me. You can't, and you must not, hurt 2 girls at the same time. I turned and went upstairs without taking the flowers he gave me. Standing on the 9th floor steps, I looked down at Julian on the ground floor. He hung his head low, hands by his sides, looking defeated and crushed. The bouquet was soaked from the rain. The delicate petals drooped into a wilted mess. This is probably the worst day in Julian's life as the favored one. The worst day. Chapter 12. I didn't look at him again and just turned back into the room. The next day, Mom booked an abortion appointment for me. As Mom and I were leaving, we ran into Julian at the stairwell. He looked like he'd been there a long time. His clothes were all wrinkled. Seeing Mom and me about to leave, he handed over the gift bag in his hand. Aunt Serafina, these are some gifts I bought for you. Mom spoke with a cold expression. We don't want your stuff. Take it and don't block the way. He looked at me warily. Serafina, where are you going? I didn't hide it. Getting an abortion. Serafina. Julian furrowed his brow, looking at me with a gloomy expression. Seeing I didn't react, he glanced at Mom and softened his tone. Aunt, could you please try to talk some sense into Serafina? I didn't cheat. Running away from the wedding was a last resort. This is the child we finally conceived together. And if we lose it, my mom fired back angrily. So what if she had an abortion? Our family is wealthy. Serafina. And even if she never marries, I can still support her. She got rid of that scumbag's child. She's got a bright future ahead. Julian's face darkened more and more. He stood in front of us, refusing to budge. My mom used to like him. She was always kind to Julian. This was the first time my mom spoke to Julian so seriously. Julian looked clearly ashamed. He grabbed me, his voice softening as he pleaded desperately. Serafina, I've already made things clear with Maria over there, and I even transferred her out of our group overnight. I told her straight up, we'll keep our distance from now on, and I won't bother or get involved with her anymore. This transfer order came through this morning. Can you take a look? He handed me his phone, his eyes filled with a pleading insistence. I couldn't be bothered to argue, so I took the phone under his hopeful gaze. Then I smashed it straight onto the ground. There was a loud crash. Julian frowned deeply, looking at me helplessly. He's always like this, calm even when I break up with him. Even if I had to terminate his child today, I wouldn't lose my temper. He always makes me feel like he still loves me, and then he makes me feel like it's all just hormones and emotions messing with us. Julian, there's no going back. Julian could have dealt with this quickly, but he had to test my feelings, waiting until everything was beyond repair before coming to apologize. I tried to forgive him, even convinced myself, but I just can't get past that deep hurt. We stood by the stairway, stuck in a tense standoff that seemed to last forever. People kept passing by. Julian looked at me, broken and filled with pain. Why? Serafina, I've already fixed everything. I never actually cheated, and I promised I'd give you a future. So why won't you just trust me one more time? Even now, he still doesn't get it. Between us, it was never really about feelings. It wasn't about trust either. It's that this love got mixed up with a third person. It's no longer pure. I didn't say a word. I was about to call security to kick Julian out. He shouted at me, Serafina. Julian crouched down and knelt right before me. The ring that had been thrown at the wedding venue was now in his palm. Marry me. Let's go get our marriage certificate right now and give the child a home, okay? To be honest, Julian is really exceptional. Good looks, strong work skills, high social status, and solid financial strength. I have feelings for him too, and we have a child together. Just some young girl who suddenly showed up out of nowhere. I could pretend nothing happened and keep being with Julian, but I don't think I really can. The love I want can't have any flaws. The moment I picked up that diamond ring, Julian's phone ringtone went off at the same time. I seemed to hear Pat say, "It's bad. Miss Maria found out you kicked her out of the group again, and she's tried to kill herself." Chapter 13. The same stunt twice. Julian's eyes flickered with struggle as he gritted his teeth and said, "Don't report to me about her anymore." He hung up the phone, looking at me with hopeful eyes. Serafina, please forgive me, all right? Let's get married again. I promise I'll treat you better from now on. I couldn't help but scoff, laughing through tears. I threw the ring down on the floor. Julian picked it up, and I threw it again. His expression darkened. I said quietly, "Some things don't get a second chance. You betrayed the 10 years we had together. I wish you a lonely life. Julian, it's me who doesn't want you anymore." Julian was probably hearing these heartbreaking words from me for the first time. He grabbed my hand and held me tightly, pain written all over his face. Serafina, please don't get an abortion. I'm begging you. We've been hoping for this child for so many years. Can you really go through with this? Serafina, this is the fruit of our love. Please don't be so cruel to me. Julian's words stirred up memories in me. Over the years, we often went shopping, and the place we visited the most was the baby section. We imagined what life would be like after having a baby, holding pink baby clothes and laughing, curiously exploring baby products together. This little life is something we've longed for and waited so long to have. We were truly happy once on this road toward happiness. But now, Julian is no longer worthy. I pushed him away and got in the car with Mom. Julian followed me all the way to the hospital, storming the ward, refusing to let the doctor perform the abortion. I looked at his savage face and calmly said, "Why bother? Wouldn't it be better to part on good terms?" Julian, with red eyes, rushed over, gritting his teeth as he said to me, "Who wants to part on good terms? Serafina, we've been together for 10 years. I've loved you for 10 years, and now I won't let you do this. You can't just sentence me to death on your own. From the moment you started falling for her, you should have known it would come to this. Serafina." I know I was wrong, Julian shouted at me, his face full of endless pain and regret. Feelings aren't about right or wrong. It's just withdrawal symptoms acting up from being together too long. I grabbed my bag and looked over at the doctor. Thanks for your trouble. We'll come back another day. Julian relaxed when he saw I was no longer pushing for an abortion. He ran after me, apologizing nonstop, full of regret. Serafina, as long as you keep the child, as long as you're willing to come back, I'll give you anything. I'll transfer all my money and assets to you, hand over my salary card, and promise to come straight home after work every night. Julian kept rambling on like that the whole way. All the things he used to say he wanted to do, the things I used to long to hear, just spilled out of his mouth then. At that moment, I truly believed he was sorry. When I got home, I went straight to my room alone and quietly stared out at the winter snow falling outside the window. December in City C was cold and damp. Julian stood alone downstairs, wrapped in a thin wool coat, with light snowflakes settling on his head. There was a message from him on my phone. Serafina, I'm standing right here waiting for you, until you forgive me. I waited for him for 10 years. Now it was his turn to wait for me, but I wasn't happy. Staring out at the slowly falling snow, I typed a line of words. Fine. I've waited for you 10 years, so you can stand downstairs for another 10. After saying that, I blocked Julian. Chapter 14. After about half an hour, the sky grew cloudy. Mom knocked and came into my room. She put a bowl of freshly made white fungus soup in front of me inside. Serafina, Mom's not trying to convince you, she just wants to ask. What exactly are you thinking right now? My mind was completely scrambled. In these 10 years, the only thing Julian refused was to marry me. Besides all the delays with the marriage, he was actually pretty good to me. He gave me gifts and red envelopes during every holiday. Flowers and cakes had practically become a daily thing. Was he good to me? Definitely. Was he bad to me? Except for not wanting to get married. He pretty much went along with whatever I wanted. Maria's situation tore apart what looked like a loving relationship, exposing it raw and bleeding out in the open. I gave Pat a call. Pat answered quickly, but his voice sounded a bit uneasy. I asked him, Pat, you've called me professor's wife all these years, but today I just want to ask you one thing. Maria, when did she first start working under Julian? And when did she become a student in his research group? Pat hesitated, then finally spoke in a soft voice. She's been here for 6 years, but she's never managed to finish her PhD thesis. So she still hasn't graduated. So that means Maria has been with Julian for 6 years. Right under my nose. I thanked Pat and hung up the phone. Then, I grabbed my tablet and checked Julian's records of supervising students' research over the years. At University C, doctoral students who don't graduate within 4 years can be asked to leave. And in Maria's thesis feedback, Julian always gives an A, but then adds a note at the bottom. The research direction doesn't match the topic and needs to be redone. Meaning, with that kind of mindset, they've been spending at least day and night together right under my nose. 4 years. I let out a sigh, took a deep breath, and laughed. Yeah, that's true. I've known all along this would be the outcome. So what exactly am I hoping for now? Or what am I disappointed about? There's an emergency 120 call coming from downstairs. Mom rushed into the room again, sounding worried. Serafina, Julian seems to have fainted downstairs. What? What do we do? I looked up at Mom. Come on, let's go to the hospital too. All these years, I've always been Julian's emergency contact. After I paid Julian's bill, another 8 hours passed. He finally woke up. The air was thick with the sharp smell of disinfectant. Julian had that boyish face, and I used to love how he'd act all cute and clingy with me. Right now, the way he looks at me, his eyes are filled with longing. Serafina, I feel so awful. I didn't pity him like I used to. I just opened the porridge I had bought on the table. Eat something once you wake up. A flicker of disappointment crossed Julian's eyes. Then he smiled at me. Okay. He ate while talking about the old days. How we once carried a kitten to the pet hospital for treatment. How we started a stray cat protection group in the park. About the joy of sharing the same interests. We really did click. Julian watched my face carefully and slowly finished the porridge in his bowl. The story was almost over, and the regret in his eyes was growing stronger. The moment the nurse finished changing Julian's foredrip, he took my hand. Serafina, I truly regret it. Please forgive me. Can we start over? The wind blew softly outside the window. The snow today wasn't as heavy as yesterday, but the air felt even colder. I looked down and pulled a medical record out of my bag. I had an abortion last night, while you were unconscious. Julian looked at me in shock. He stared at the medical record, caught between tears and laughter. Serafina, seriously, are you really this cold? This was a life. Why can't you forgive me? Am I that unforgivable? Couldn't we keep the child? Why? Why treat it like this? Why can't you forgive me? I looked at Julian and spoke softly. Because my love for you is completely gone. For these 10 years, the thing I looked forward to the most was our wedding. My greatest dream was to marry you. Do you remember? Every year, I'd ask you once, when are you going to marry me? Every time, you'd say wait, then pull out a gift to comfort me, promising that one day it would definitely happen. I waited and waited, hoped and hoped, and I used to believe that if I never married you, I would be heartbroken beyond words. But when the wedding day actually came, and you walked away from me for what lies ahead, I thought long and hard. Maybe what's been holding me back was just my own obsession. Not you, Julian. I don't love you anymore, so I don't want to have your child. Julian looked at me with utter disbelief. My words must have shattered his heart. Right in front of me, he spat out a mouthful of blood. The blue and white bedsheets were instantly stained with blood. I quickly called for a doctor and rushed Julian to the emergency room. Half an hour later, the emergency room doors swung open. The doctor came out. The patient just had a sudden rush of blood to his heart, plus too many late nights and overwork. He'll be fine as long as he rests more from now on. I nodded and, sticking to the principle of helping out till the end, paid the rest of Julian's hospital bill. Chapter 15. 3 days later, there was a knock at the front door. I looked through the peephole and saw Julian's pale but defined features. Looks like he's still not giving up. I opened the door. He showed me a face filled with wounded pain. His voice was a little hoarse. Do you hate me so much that you wouldn't even come to see me when I was sick? I spoke up. It's not hate. It's just that you don't matter anymore. From the day I decided to break up with him, we became strangers intimately familiar with this truth. Julian lowered his head. He was always so proud and arrogant. But for the first time, he shed tears in front of me. Tears fell one by one onto the marble tiles right in front of me. Julian spoke with pain. I really can't let go. Serafina, do we really have to break up? Do you have to be this cruel to me? Can we make things right? I'm begging you. Serafina, I'm begging you. Please don't reject me. I just can't handle it. Serafina, please. I never imagined, not in a million years, that Julian would lower his proud head before me. In front of me, he begged softly, pleading with me not to leave him, asking me to forgive him. Something stirred deep inside me. A strange feeling spread all over my body. Julian noticed I hadn't said a word. He lifted his head and suddenly pulled me into a tight hug. Serafina, I really miss you. I can't live without you. Please don't be so hard on me. Julian's expression left me confused. Not knowing what to do, I rubbed my forehead and told him to come inside first. The air conditioning and heating switched back and forth, making me shiver uncontrollably. Julian immediately, just like before, reflexively poured me a glass of warm water. I held the cup, sitting on the sofa with him, and we stayed silent for a long time. The clock ticked, and the TV was playing Santa Claus's holiday greetings. Today is Christmas Eve. I finished the water in my cup and set it down on the table. Julian. He looked at me, his eyes cautious and tentative. I smiled. I'm going to study in the United Kingdom. Julian's expression darkened, and he asked, confused, why? My gaze fell on the stack of fashion design books on the table. I used to think that girls didn't need to be exceptional, as long as they married an outstanding husband, stayed home to raise the kids, cooked, and backed him up. But in these past few days, I suddenly realized something. I have things I want to do, dreams of my own, a sky and goals that belong to me. So, I'm planning to leave City C and go to the United Kingdom to study. Julian's eyes showed strong resistance. But you're already 30. Starting now, don't you think it's a little late? I smiled. Late? As long as it's something I want to do. It's never too late to start. Julian didn't say a word, his eyes full of disapproval. Back then, I would have already said no. But now that we're done, I don't have to watch his mood anymore. I've made up my mind. So Julian, you should go back. After saying that, I stood up and headed back to my room. Julian grabbed my hand. His expression was tangled and complicated. I'm waiting for you. Serafina, you go ahead. I'll wait for you to come back. I didn't say a word and pushed his hand away. That's not necessary. Julian, I'm not one to keep people waiting. Chapter 16. The day the offer came through. I posted a status update to celebrate. Julian's parents both gave a thumbs up. Mom and Dad made me a table full of delicious food to celebrate. When you're out there on your own, make sure to take good care of yourself, okay? Mom patiently gave her advice. Nagging a little, I felt a warmth in my heart and nodded again and again. The next day, I set off on my trip to the United Kingdom. At the airport's departure hall, I saw Julian. He was holding a bouquet of my favorite peonies, standing by the check-in counter waiting for me. Serafina, I came to see you off. I didn't say a word and handed my ID to the staff. Julian stood to the side, handing me the boxes one by one. These are some essentials I prepared for you to take along. Things that are hard to find in the United Kingdom. Take them with you. These are your favorite pastries. I bought some for you to eat on the way. This is... I was about to refuse. Julian looked at me pleadingly and cut me off. Serafina, please don't reject me. Even if we break up, I still want to be good to you. Can you let me keep that right? I took a deep breath and accepted the things from his hand. Thank you. After the staff handed me my boarding pass, I didn't look back at Julian and walked through the security checkpoint. He shouted from behind me, Serafina, I'm waiting for you. No matter how long you stay in the United Kingdom, I'll wait for you. Serafina, I love you. Julian's farewell at the airport made countless passers-by stop and stare. They all shot me envious looks. Even the security staff gave me a couple of extra glances. Being so openly dramatic about his love in public isn't really Julian's style. Right now, he's probably feeling unsettled, afraid that once I leave, I'll never come back and won't want him anymore. I held on to the thing he gave me, gripping the boarding pass tightly. Julian's figure slowly disappeared behind me. As night fell, the dusk outside the tarmac's floor-to-ceiling windows was especially vivid, like a setting sun, and also like the first light breaking through the night. Step by step, I boarded the plane, watching City C's horizon fade away. For a brief moment, everything in this city felt completely irrelevant to me. Chapter 17. The plane flew for 22 hours and landed at Edinburgh Airport. The moment I landed, I got a message from an unknown number. Did you get here safely? Serafina. Looks like this is Julian's newly registered phone number. I didn't reply. I just saw the diamond ring he'd slipped into the box while I was packing. I stared at the diamond ring and sat on the living room sofa for a long time. We picked out this diamond ring together. 5 carats. 350,000. It was Julian's salary for more than half a year. His colleague and his fiancée were there with us when we picked the ring. They shook their heads in disbelief when they heard the ring's price. Only Julian raised an eyebrow at me and confidently said, If you like it, then let's buy it. Julian, that guy. As long as he can afford it, he'll pay for the things I like. Maybe it was because I was too unfamiliar with the environment here in the United Kingdom. My emotions spiraled out of control. We promised I wouldn't cry over him. But now here I am, drinking straight from the bottle. I wavered. In the days that followed, Julian would text me every single day. He'd share his daily life with me, even though I never replied. Life went on steadily, and I slowly started to adjust to living here. Every day I studied English, my major courses, and ate and studied with other international students. Life felt full and hopeful. Julian's name slowly faded from my mind. What filled my life were all kinds of classes, professors' lectures, and group discussions. I no longer felt down or lost over that past relationship. Smiles appeared on my face more and more often. On the day I received the scholarship for the new academic year, Julian sent me a new message. It's been a year, Serafina. Are you planning to come back? I stared at that message for a long time. Finally, looking at the design assignment I just received, I sent Julian my first message in a year. I'm doing well here, and I'll stay on to finish my studies. After sending that message, it felt like it disappeared without a trace. Julian hadn't messaged me at all for a long time. I didn't think much of it, until one noon after the semester started. Right in front of the White Dove Church, as the Big Ben clock chimed, I saw Julian wearing a dark blue jacket, standing by the creamy white fountain, pure white doves circled overhead. We were just across half the lawn, looking at each other. He walked toward me, his expression a mix of nervousness and joy. Serafina, I'm here to see you. After a year, I no longer felt the resistance toward him that I once did. Now, I have a future, my studies, and opportunities ahead. I won't stake my happiness on a marriage or a man anymore. I was calm. Long time no see. Julian and I grabbed a bite at a casual place off campus. He asked me a lot about how life's been here. I answered each question as best as I could. Our plates slowly emptied. Julian set down his knife and fork, then stared down in silence for a long while. Serafina, can you give me a deadline? I looked at him, confused. He took a deep breath, his face gradually becoming awkward. I just want to know, when will you finish your studies? When will you come back home? And when will you go through with marrying me? I know that look of his all too well. Back when I asked him when he would marry me, he was just as awkward, worried about putting pressure on me. That embarrassed expression. I leaned back, replying just like the Julian from before. Right now, my only plans are my studies and career. As for marriage, I'm not thinking about it at the moment. Julian looked at me with a conflicted expression. Serafina, are you trying to get back at me right now? I stared at him in disbelief and shook my head. I'm not that calculating. I honestly just haven't thought it through. If you have the chance to go out and build something for yourself, who'd want to just settle down and get married? Julian clenched his fists in anger, his face darkening. This casual eatery was run by a guy from Hong Kong, with heartfelt Cantonese songs playing softly inside. Julian closed his eyes, his voice hoarse. Serafina, I'm 31 now. I can't keep waiting for you for years. Can you just give me a straight answer? What a coincidence. The same thing he said. I said to him a year ago. I said, Julian, I'm about to turn 30, and a girl's youth only lasts a few precious years. So when exactly are you going to marry me? What did Julian say back then? He was holding the experiment report, his eyes fully focused on the data. Wait a little longer. Marriage isn't even on my mind right now. I broke down asking him how long he wanted me to wait. He said he wasn't sure, because he wasn't sure how his future would unfold. It's only been a year. Can't he wait any longer? I smiled. I can't give you a definite answer because my future is still uncertain. Chapter 18. Julian fell silent. We parted on bad terms. The next day, he asked me to meet him at our usual place. But it's only been a year, and it feels like the way we relate has changed a lot. Before, I was always the one starting conversations, trying different ways to talk to him. Now, I'm silent, and there's silence between us. Julian tried bringing up topics a few times, but nothing really took off. Bit by bit, his face showed more and more defeat. Just as he was about to speak again, I said, there's no need for this. If there's nothing to say, then don't say anything. He sighed and then let out a soft laugh. I never imagined that finding things to talk about between two people could be so exhausting. Actually, coming up with topics isn't tiring. Not having anything to talk about isn't tiring either. What's tiring is when there's nothing to say. And when, among two people wanting to connect, one just doesn't show up for it. It's like when I used to rack my brain trying to talk with Julian. He would look at me and say, I'm not interested in what you're saying. Honestly, it's pretty nice just sitting quietly like this. Looking back, even in those everyday little moments we shared, there were invisible pressures and tensions. It's just that the old me always kept it buried deep inside, pretending nothing ever happened. I turned my head toward the window, watching the people flow by, and then asked, How long are you planning to stay here? Julian smiled. I'm leaving tomorrow. I just came to see you. Early spring in Edinburgh was covered with drifting cherry blossoms everywhere. I stood up and walked outside. Come on, let me show you around the big church. Julian followed behind me. Along the way, we ran into lots of French people and quite a few photographers. They greeted us warmly, complimenting us as a perfect match, like a talented guy with a beautiful girl. Julian laughed out loud after hearing that. We were pretty lucky. When we got to the church doors, we happened to catch a wedding in progress. The groom kissed the bride on the forehead and spun her around in a princess carry. The crowd was bursting with cheers and blessings. Everyone was swept up in the joy and happiness of the moment. I looked over at Julian and caught a flicker of longing in his eyes. I just kept staring at him for a long while, until he noticed, smiling and lowering his gaze to me. Why are you looking at me like that? I smiled at him and said, do you want to get married? Honestly, I don't want to get married at all right now. I feel like I haven't finished my studies, and my career hasn't even started yet. Now's just not the right time to get married or have kids. The smile on Julian's lips suddenly faded. After leaving the church, he took me to school, half a meter away, by the cherry blossom tree. He stopped and asked me, Serafina, are you serious? I turned around and smiled at him sincerely. Yeah, I'm serious. Julian, who was leaving tomorrow, took me out to buy lots of things. He stuffed the living room in my house to the brim. His eyes held a reluctant look as he smiled at me. Study hard, and take good care of yourself. I nodded. The next day, Julian left. I didn't go to the airport to see him off. He left a pink gift box on the table. The card was filled with his wishes for me. Inside the box was a pink necklace. Unlike the apology gift from a year ago, Julian said he picked this one himself. He said he thought it suited me perfectly. I unclasped the chain and put it around my neck. In the mirror, I see myself smiling. There's a calm acceptance in my eyes. Chapter 19. Suddenly, 2 years have passed. I finished my master's degree, and my advisor offered me a job at a fashion company in Edinburgh. I accepted the offer. One night, a close friend from back home suddenly messaged me. She said, Julian had gotten married. The bride's name is Maria. I stared at the wedding photo of the two, both smiling brightly, and replied to my friend with a single sentence. They look great together. I wish him well. I wasn't curious about how they ended up together because I had to head to the New York fashion company tomorrow to close a big deal. It's done, and it can help our company boost sales by 50% next quarter. My friends saw I wasn't really affected, so they started gossiping and asking around. She told me what she'd heard. Turns out the reason they were getting married was because Maria accidentally got pregnant. Julian didn't want to marry her and told her to have an abortion. But Maria called it out in front of the entire lab and even threatened that Julian had to marry her. The lab was Julian's whole life. Naturally, he didn't want any drama over this. So they ended up having the wedding. Sounds pretty trashy. Honestly, I'm just here to listen to some gossip. Then one afternoon, out of nowhere, I got a call from Julian. He asked me, how's life in the United Kingdom? When are you coming back? I leaned back in my chair and smiled as I replied, what? You're married and still curious about when your ex is coming back? The 10 years Julian and I shared were truly mutual. When we broke up, I didn't hold any grudges against him. Now that I have my own life and career, the resentment and coldness I once felt toward him have naturally faded. But I never expected that my casual teasing would actually unsettle Julian. He asked me hoarsely, how did I find out about his marriage? After all, besides this number, we had no other way to contact each other. I smiled casually. There's no wall that doesn't leak. Anywhere in the world. He was silent for a long time, then started to panic and explained everything to me. He said that over the years Maria had always resented his decision to transfer her out of the group. So the following year, Maria contacted other mentors and transferred back to the laboratory. Later on, Maria kept apologizing to him because of our breakup. He made it clear it was okay. And after that, they didn't really stay in touch. Until one day, he missed me so much that he got drunk. That day, they did it. Julian apologized to me over the phone. Serafina, listen to me. I really didn't mean it. I just missed you so much and got drunk again. I nodded and kept listening to him. So, what happened next? Julian said that the next day, Maria made it clear she didn't want him to take responsibility. But 3 months later, she ran into the laboratory crying, saying she was pregnant. She wanted him to marry her. I firmly refused and promised to cover her abortion expenses and follow-up care costs. I also vowed to compensate her. It was noon, and I'd been busy all morning. Now, hearing what Julian was saying, I actually found it pretty interesting. I replied, she didn't agree, right? Yeah, Julian went on. This whole thing has been blowing up in the office. Rumors have been spreading from the research institute little by little. Maria faces a lot of gossip every day, and life's been getting harder for her. One day, she finally snapped. She told them she used to like him, and that he secretly took photos of her and put her through what felt like theatrical harassment. She caused a scene at the research institute, crying and saying that it was only because she refused to submit to Julian that he moved her out of the group. Actually, everyone sharp-eyed at the research institute could see that Maria was just playing him. But there's nothing you can do. This whole thing was his fault. Serafina, I feel only responsibility for her. No love. Serafina, can you forgive me? Julian's words almost made me spit out the coffee I'd just taken. Not to mention that I had the courage to leave him when I had nothing. Now that he's married and has kids, how could I rush to be the other woman? I burst out laughing immediately. Julian, you marrying Maria, I sincerely wish you happiness. Back in my 2nd year in the United Kingdom, I already let you go. Now between us, we can be friends or strangers, but there won't be any other kind of relationship. Chapter 20. Since then, I haven't gotten a single call from Julian. In the following 6 months, I met someone I could see myself spending the rest of my life with. His name is Ariel. We met at a design exhibition in New York and judged a piece by a rising designer together. We share the same interests and similar ways of living. So, we made a bold decision, a quick marriage. We had a romantic wedding in Edinburgh, inviting close friends to witness it. The girlfriends who were worried about my marriage all gave my husband their sincerest and most heartfelt blessings when they met him. My parents also shed tears, wishing me true happiness. After we got married, we didn't choose to go back home, because I still had a lot of follow-up work to do here. My husband listened to me and stayed with me in Edinburgh. One day, while chatting with a friend, she told me about Julian's recent situation. She said that half a year after Julian and Maria got married, Maria completely changed from being gentle and considerate to becoming bossy and spoiled. Whenever Julian did something that upset her, she'd start making a scene. At first, it was just at home. Later, Julian didn't want to come home as much and started working overtime more and more. She even began causing scenes at his workplace. Julian's job is really demanding and often needs intense focus. I never disturbed him while he was working, but Maria was different. She wanted to prove her place in Julian's heart. She demanded that Julian reply instantly to messages, pick up calls right away, and rush home as soon as work ended. Julian had to drop a lot of work just to stop her from causing trouble at the company, risking demotion to spend more time with her. After about a year, Maria was pregnant with their 2nd child. During her pregnancy, she became even more bossy and arrogant. Julian often had to cut his work short and head home. Soon, Julian was demoted to a regular researcher for failing to complete the tasks assigned by the lab. Some old friends from the research institute told me that Julian was pleading with Maria to let him go that day. Not long after, Maria showed up at the research institute, heavily pregnant, and caused a huge scene. Their argument was basically that Julian was the one who first set his sights on Maria. But now that he had her, he started to look down on her. Julian shouted at Maria for not giving him any space. Maria shouted back at Julian for not knowing how to be considerate towards a woman. In the middle of the argument, Julian accidentally smashed a lab bottle. The bottle broke, and the shards slid to Maria's feet. She didn't notice and stepped on it. Sharp glass pierced the sole of her foot. She lost her balance and collapsed to the ground. The glass cut her lower body, and blood poured out in torrents. Julian was horrified, realizing it was already too late to get her to the hospital. Maria lost the child on the spot and was left with lasting health problems. She would never be able to have children for the rest of her life. By the 3rd year of marriage, The two had become a notorious bitter couple at the research institute. Everyone avoided them like the plague. You have no idea how satisfying it was when I heard about all this. Ha ha ha. When my friend told me this, I felt a bit stunned. The man I loved for 10 years ending up like this today really proves that old saying true. Those who betray true feelings deserve to swallow 10,000 needles. Another year went by, and my parents' health started to decline. I gradually transferred my work back from overseas and returned to City C with my husband. On the day we came back, Julian somehow got wind of it. The moment I stepped off the plane, I saw him holding a bouquet of roses in the crowd. His eyes locked tightly on me. After all these years, he looked worn out way beyond just a bit. The crowd was bustling, and in the chaos, I spotted my parents and smiled as I greeted them. Julian came up and blocked our way. He handed me a rose, forcing an awkward smile. "Serafina, it's been 5 years. Welcome back." I nodded and pushed the rose aside. "Thanks, but you should take the flower back. With who I am now, it's not right for me to accept his flowers. And with who he is, it's even less fitting for him to give me flowers." Julian looked down and forced a smile. "I know you still haven't forgiven me, Serafina. After all these years, I've always wanted to say sorry once more." I frowned and gave him a strange look. "Julian, if you really cared about me, you wouldn't be here today. Especially not with flowers. Have you forgotten you're already in a relationship? Maria's not someone you want to mess with. I don't want to get involved between you two." No sooner had I mentioned Maria than she showed up. Maria appeared around the corner, her eyes fixed on me like they were dripping with venom. The once innocent girl had long since changed. Now, Maria faded into the crowd as nothing more than a woman filled with quiet bitterness. She ran up to Julian, slapped him hard across the face, and broke down crying. Chapter 21. I knew you could never forget her. After all these years, I've been with you all this time. So why won't you even look at me? Is she really that special? As soon as she came back to the country, you were already so obsessed, rushing over to pick her up without a second thought. Have you forgotten? We're already married. You'll never have anything with her again. Julian probably felt a bit embarrassed, maybe even ashamed. He shouted irritably and threw her to the ground. "Enough, Maria. How long are you going to keep this up? I just came to see an old friend. That's all. Why do you have to control my life like this?" Maria's tears were the truest I'd ever seen from her. Tears fell one by one, like delicate threads. Her hands trembled as her lips quivered open. "Old friend? The kind whose name you still call out in your dreams? Julian. Oh, Julian. If you really loved her, why'd you come after me? If you truly love me, why would you come see her today?" Julian stood there, speechless, his fists clenched tightly. Undeniable. Maria was right. If you love someone, you shouldn't be interested in anyone else. In the middle of the chaos, Ariel appeared behind me, holding our daughter's hand. "Honey, who's this?" Our daughter jumped onto me. Julian stared in shock at Ariel, who had appeared behind me. He looked at Ariel with pure affection as she looked at me, holding up the KFC she just bought. "Here are the fries, burger, and mashed potatoes you wanted." Maria also stared at Ariel in disbelief. When I realized he was my husband, she looked at the three of us and, tears in her eyes, smiled at Julian. "So this is the woman you've been head over heels for all these years. You've got a husband and a child now, but you're still foolishly waiting for her. Ha 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 ha." Julian's face went pale, a sharp pain flickering in his eyes as he looked at me. "You got married?" I nodded. "Yeah, this is my husband and child." My open attitude made Julian's eyes turn red. His voice grew hoarse. "Why haven't I seen any of your WeChat status updates?" I frowned, then suddenly remembered that when I deleted Julian, I must have forgotten to delete his secondary account. No wonder he never asked to add me back after all these years. That WeChat account hasn't been used for a long time. Julian's face went pale, and he gave a bitter laugh. "Is that so? Well, I wish you all the best." There was a hint of regret in his voice. I think it was in my second year after moving to the United Kingdom when I watched an Eason Chan concert alone in New York. There's a line in one of the songs that goes, "My biggest regret is that your regret has something to do with me." At the scene, I suddenly thought of Julian. That's when I suddenly realized a crush is just a passing spark, but true peace of heart lasts forever. So when it comes to Julian, I no longer feel any regret. Chapter 22. That day, the five of us left the airport laughing together. No one really cared about what was going on between Julian and Maria. No one wanted to bring up the past. But, unexpectedly, it all happened that very day. Maria cut her wrists in a suicide attempt. Julian thought she was faking it, so he didn't take it seriously. But she actually died right there in the bathroom. Blood everywhere. Her body was found by Maria's coworker, who noticed she hadn't shown up that morning and went to bring her lunch. After a colleague called the police, she stormed into the research institute and slapped Julian hard. Didn't you know she was emotionally unstable when you were with her? She could have killed herself for you even when she wasn't with you. Now she actually has. Are you happy? If you don't love her, then at least don't hurt her. With tears in her eyes, my colleague loudly made a scene. Everyone at the research institute knew about it. Julian's wife slit her wrists and took her own life. Everyone started avoiding him like the plague. The social fallout from this was pretty intense. The higher-ups decided in the meeting to fire Julian. Julian's parents cried their eyes red, and the news spread throughout the whole old lady circle. When my friend told me, I stayed silent for a long time. Good and bad fortune come hand in hand. Julian should have expected this ending from the day he betrayed me. Those who betray others deserve to go to hell. I didn't care about him anymore and bought tickets to the amusement park for my daughter. The five of us are going to ride the carousel tomorrow. The end. Extra. Julian's chapter. I never thought I'd marry anyone other than Serafina. Even back then, I had different feelings stirring for Maria. So when I found out Serafina was pregnant, my emotions were all over the place. I was really looking forward to this child's arrival. But in my mind, I kept picturing that graceful silhouette. I admit it, the 10-year itch. My love for Serafina has lost the certainty it once had. I started developing feelings for another girl, until Serafina said she wanted to terminate the pregnancy. At that moment, I suddenly felt like my life was spiraling out of control. I can't leave Serafina, I have to be with her. Once I realized how much Serafina meant to me, I started dropping everything at work and begging her desperately for forgiveness. Until Serafina had an abortion and told me she was heading to the United Kingdom. I didn't want her to go. Selfishly, I hoped she'd stay, loving me like before, taking care of me, revolving around me. But I couldn't get Serafina to change her mind. She was completely determined to go to the United Kingdom. I had no choice but to let her leave. I thought Serafina had never truly left me, that she wouldn't be able to last long out there. I just needed to wait until she got tired and sad. Then comfort her again. She would come back with me to the country, back to my side. I waited 1 month, 2 months, a whole year. I couldn't wait any longer. So I went to the United Kingdom to find Serafina. She looked even more beautiful than the last time we met. Having studied design, there was a new kind of charm about her that she hadn't had before. I realized my love for her had grown wildly, not fading at all. I wanted Serafina to come back with me, but she told me no. She wanted to stay here and continue with her career and studies. I wanted to intervene, but I couldn't. I had no right. I went back home, ready to keep waiting for Serafina. When did everything start to fall apart? Maybe it was one cold night. I felt so lonely. I just wanted someone to be with me. Honestly, I think Serafina is really smart. She must have realized my love for her wasn't pure anymore. That's probably why she ended the pregnancy and took off. That day, I suddenly felt like there was no way to win Serafina back. By chance, Maria showed up to pick me up at the bar. I did have feelings for her before, and that day I couldn't resist the urge I felt for Maria. I was with her. There are two kinds of human desire, greed and dissatisfaction. My feeling towards Maria is greed. I want to have Serafina, but I also want to try the fresh, innocent Maria. I was greedy, and honestly, it felt pretty good. It was amazing. Caught in a trance. Deep down I still feel some dissatisfaction with Serafina. How could Serafina just leave like that? Not a single trace of attachment to me? So, feeling dissatisfied, I decided to wait for her. I have to have a resolution with Serafina. But Maria is pregnant. She wants me to marry her. I looked at her slightly rounded belly and thought about the child Serafina had lost. At that moment, I suddenly really wanted to be a dad, because I realized I was getting lonelier, and there was no one left in this world who truly understood me. I wanted a little life to be by my side again. I didn't want to lose the second child. So, I chose to marry Maria. I wanted Serafina to regret losing me. I wanted her to be haunted by that regret. Days flew by, and life with Maria gradually settled into a routine. I was starting to think she was such a boring woman. She kept demanding more and more from me. I began not coming home. She started arguing, getting anxious and hysterical. I began giving her the silent treatment. I thought of Serafina, so I called that number I hadn't dialed in ages. I thought Serafina didn't know I was getting married. I figured I could still chat with her like old times. But as soon as she spoke, she saw right through me. I couldn't hide it anymore. So, I started lying. I told her it was all Maria's fault, that I didn't love her at all. Serafina, believe it or not, I'm not sure, but as I said it, I realized I really don't love Maria. She's just fresh flesh. How could she compare to Serafina, who I spent 10 years with, day in and day out, and chased after with so much effort? I felt even more irritated after hanging up the phone. I started not coming home for an entire month, until Maria got pregnant again. Chapter 23. This is my second child, but I realized that having a child with someone I don't love, no matter how adorable the child is, I just couldn't feel close. I never cared about this child like I did the first one. Maria caught on and started arguing with me one after another. I was so frustrated that I began scrolling through Serafina's photos, reminiscing about the past. What I didn't expect was that Maria caught this through the surveillance. She stormed into the laboratory and we had a huge fight, during which she accidentally stepped on glass and miscarried. The doctor said she injured her uterus and will never be able to have children again. Maria was really anxious, kept crying, afraid that I would abandon her. I didn't comfort her because she wasn't wrong. I was planning to leave her after Serafina came back. She was just fresh flesh. Only Serafina was my soulmate. I waited impatiently, over and over. Finally, in the 3rd year after our wedding, I got the news that Serafina was coming back. That day, I wore a brand new suit and held peonies, Serafina's favorite flower, crossing half the city to wait at the airport. The moment she walked out of the airport, my eyes lit up. After 3 years apart, she had become even more beautiful. My eyes burned with heat. The words I'd practiced for so long, the moment I spoke them, were met with cold silence. Serafina, she looked beautiful even with that cold expression. I'm not afraid of her cold face. I'm confident I can win her back. But Maria, that annoying girl, showed up again and ruined everything for me. I pushed her to the ground in frustration, silently vowing to divorce her once I got home. But it was right then. Serafina, a man stepped out from behind her. Serafina said he was her husband, and they already had a daughter. That day, I stared at that little girl and felt regret for a long time. I wonder if back then I had fought tooth and nail to stop Serafina from having that abortion. Would we have had a different, happier ending? I wonder if back then I hadn't had feelings for Maria. Would Serafina and I have loved each other forever? I'm so full of regret, so heartbroken. Maria asked me if I regretted it, and I said yes. I said I wished she would just die. The next day, I went to work in a daze. I didn't notice any noise coming from the bathroom, until Maria's colleague slapped me and broke down crying. My ears went numb as I heard her say, "Maria is dead." My first reaction was actually relief. Thank God, she's finally dead. I finally don't have to take care of her anymore. But I often dream about her, dreaming that she says I've let her down. My mind started to get all mixed up. Sometimes I think of Serafina. Sometimes I think of Maria. One day, when I was sober, I suddenly realized something. They both seemed like such good people from the very beginning, but I was the one who destroyed them. Long ago, I lost Serafina's heart. Later, I threw Maria's hin on the ground like it meant nothing. I really deserved to die. That day, I drank some and was completely dazed. The air on the rooftop of the 33rd floor is so fresh. The world feels wide open, and the view is totally clear. I turned into a bird and flew over to Serafina's place. When the media announced that I had died, Serafina turned off the TV and quietly tied a butterfly-shaped knot in her daughter's hair. She didn't feel sad about me dying, not even a hint of extra emotion. I honestly don't know what I'm feeling right now.